Let's see, is this streaming? Okay. Hey, I see that there's one viewer in the chat. So let me know if the audio is or is not working. Welcome. Yeah, for anyone who is watching, this is our All About Love book club today. We are going to go over chapters 4 and 5, and let's just dive right in. So I'm going to stream my notes, and people can take a look at that. Okie dokie. So hopefully that looks good. All right, so chapter 4, commitment, let love be love in me. So let's see. The first note I have is whether we learn how to love ourselves and others will depend on the presence of a loving environment. Love is a social experience. It's really hard to love without other people. Self-love cannot flourish in ice. Oh, you know what? That's actually something that I think I just might have said as my own thoughts because there's not a quote next to it or there's not a page number. But I mean, I think I just really agreed with this quote about like the presence of a loving environment. Like there's this kind of myth of like you have to learn how to love yourself by like you just got to learn how to be alone. It is important to know how to be alone because alone time and that kind of reflection is really important, but like honestly like learning how to love yourself is very social. Like and this is not something that she's writing about. This is me just like talking, but like so much of our trauma around like hating ourselves, around not loving ourselves happens socially in social settings, you know, trauma from our parents, from our family and friends. Like so healing that is often actually a social experience. And so I'm really glad that she said, you know, talks about being able to love yourself, that being in a loving environment, because like this individualism of like going and just being by yourself and just like being really good at being by yourself is just a bunch of BS. And like I bought into that for years, and then I wasted years being like, oh, I just need to get better at being alone. Wish I had just been like, oh, I'm lonely, so I need to find community, find people who are like value me and I value them. But yeah, I kind of just said a lot. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Okay, I am not
Hi,
hearing.
Story. I'm late.
Hey, Ben. Yeah, okay. So, but yeah, I think yeah. So she says self love cannot flourish in isolation. It's not easy. It's not easy task to be self loving. Yeah, like you kind of need the help of other people. It's like people don't like to hear that in this culture. They like hearing you need to be the lone wolf. But yeah, I mean I don't know. I also am sure there's exceptions. Like some people really do enjoy their time alone. I'm not saying people have to like, be like or extroverted. Um, But yeah, so the next thing I wrote down is when a person remembers the details of being abused is not important. Oh, I thought that was interesting because I actually I'm like wondering if this is like psychologically true. She says when a person remembers the details of being abused, or whether I think I meant to say that a person remembers the details of being abused is not important. When the consequences of that abuse is a feeling of worthlessness, they can still engage in a process of self recovery by finding ways to affirm self worth. Yeah, I was curious if anyone like had any thoughts on this. Like, can you really like just like if you don't have feelings of self worth, can you really just like not even identify where that trauma is coming from, and then just like have self worth though by like just doing stuff to help your self esteem, or like it seems like identifying those issues seems like it would be important. But she also goes on to say that sometimes identifying those things, like there's a way where people just use that to tell a story about themselves, like, oh, I know that I have a low self-esteem because my parents treated me this way, and people just tell that story over and over and over again, and that actually telling that story over and over again keeps people back from actually exploring, you know, from having a different story. So yeah, if anyone has any thoughts on that.
I can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
is that you, Corin?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I can't. There's like all these boxes, but yeah, I can hear you.
Oh no, it's all good. Um, I didn't read the chapter because I've been busy all week, but I was just reading that quote. It kind of reminds me of like what I'm feeling like right now. Like I know I feel a lot of, you know, I have a lot of low self-esteem and stuff, but like I don't really know why, and I know it relates to a lot of my past trauma when I was little, but like I don't remember a lot of that trauma because of like I don't know, like my memory is blocked by like because like physical abuse and all this stuff. Like I know like my mom used to hit me and stuff, but I don't like remember it. So like I used to like literally tell my dad, like he used to tell me, yeah, your mom used to hit you, and I used to be like, no, she didn't. I don't remember because I literally just didn't remember.
Hmm.
And so I feel like there is a way, like you don't remember literally, so you have to find ways to heal despite not knowing what you went through.
That is such a good point because yeah, there's stuff that as a kid like you don't remember, and like even like I was like went to this like adoption panel once, and this therapist was talking about like adopted children and like just kind of like talking about like the psychological effects of like being separated from your parents, and like even as a baby how there's like sometimes there can be like things like ingrained in your development, and that's just stuff that's like as a baby that you don't even remember. And then this person also mentioned like just like babies, like when a baby cries and like doesn't get any attention, how that actually really affects how that person grows up, and like it affects like their attachment, and that's just them as babies. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like you don't even know like where these issues started, but you can still address them. Yeah, that helps me understand that a lot better. Anything else on that?
I'd say though it does make it a lot more difficult to address them when you can't figure out where it's coming from. I mean, my current cycle, like I remember a bunch of things at once, and then my mind makes me process through all of the shit it remembers at once. So like you can work through some of it without remembering, but it does add a pretty strong layer of difficulty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I totally. I think I can agree with that. It's helpful me to like. I think for me, like understanding trauma, like when I understand, like oh, like I have a low self esteem because of probably these series of experiences, and I think understanding my trauma can help me like not to act out on my trauma, like not to lash out. Where I'm like, oh, like I'm a very anxious person, and like I try to be self aware about just because I feel anxious doesn't mean that I have to make anyone do anything. Because I think there's a way where I'm like, I'm anxious, and like, I'm like, do people mind doing this or that to like help accommodate this thing I'm stressed out about? But I try to like, because I know that I'm anxious and like anxiety is like feeling a lack of control, that helps me be aware that that's what's going on for me, but not what's going on for everyone else. And so I need to be good about not having that explode on everyone. So like it helps me like not lash out with my trauma and like hopefully deal with it. But as far as healing trauma, you know, this is like a little bit tangential. Like I'm just kind of thinking of like people who have like PTSD. Like I was like reading in this book called The Body Keeps a Score. Like people like would throw a ball back and forth with each other, and these were veterans who had PTSD, and they would just like talk about their trauma, and like doing that, like for some reason like doing that to action together of like doing an activity together and talking about their trauma like greatly helped with their PTSD. And it's like weird. There are like some things like that that like help with this kind of like nervous system response of um but yeah, I'm just kind of rambling. I just get curious about this stuff because it's like yeah, I just get curious about this stuff. But yeah, any other thoughts that on that?
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah. All right. So Bell Hooks has the 6 pillars of self-esteem. She said it's self-acceptance, self-responsibility, self-assertiveness, living purposefully, and the practice of personal integrity. And then she goes on to talk about affirmations. And she says affirmations helped bell hooks restore her equilibrium. I was wondering any thoughts on this. Like, I'm someone who's tried self affirmations, and like I actually like really don't like doing them, but I also get the concept of them because like just like that belief in yourself, trying to like reaffirm that. Like something that's helped me is like practicing gratitude, where I'll be like, I'm thankful for just like saying what I'm thankful for. That helps sometimes with like my, I'll still be anxious afterwards, but I'll be like, yeah, there's other good things happening. And then also, sorry, I hope this is like not talking too much, but like another thing that sometimes helps me is like practicing Maitri, which is like, well, I'm probably gonna butcher this what Maitri is, but like there's like this Maitri practice where you like will like say like, you'll ask for the best for your parents, for your friends, and then you do it for people you don't know, and then you do it for people who are your enemies. And so you'd be like, may this person, be happy and peaceful, and you kind of do this like thing for even the people you feel hurt by. And even if you don't really mean that, like, because like it's not even about like meaning it, it's like there's something about it that just like lets you be like, that's kind of like not on me right now to have to do anything about that. Like I don't know, I'm not explaining this very well, but those are things that have helped me when I have like rumination or anxiety. And I have a really low self-esteem, and affirmations have kind of felt tedious to me, but I know some people really like them. So I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts on affirmations, or like things that help them, for anyone who has like a low self-esteem or struggles with self-love.
Yeah, I don't like affirmations. I have tried them many times, as my therapist has tried to get me to try them many times, and anytime I do any kind of affirmation, I feel like I'm lying to myself the whole time.
Yeah, I feel the
Exactly.
same. I'm like, you're great, and I'm like, bullshit, that's not
Yeah,
true. And then
exactly.
I'm like,
Pretty
yeah.
often the way that they're presented is a little bit too like a bridge too far for me at least. I'm more what's more helpful for me is like interruptions or like disruptions from my normal thinking pattern. And usually that doesn't look like stop thinking that way because you're so amazing. That's again, it's like a bridge too far, right? I'm like, I'm not actually there yet at so amazing. But what I can do is I can sometimes it's like a form of affirmation, like affirming that, whoa, okay, maybe that's actually a little bit silly and you're not actually that bad of a person. So it's like an affirmation light or like
Mm-hmm.
a deformation of the painful thought pattern or something. Yeah, you like that one, Tom? Deformation. Um, so yeah, it's like yeah, because so often they're presented in like kind of a hippy dippy, not necessarily new age, but kind of like self help era that I think is a lot of what she's criticizing in some ways. But
Mm-hmm.
also like yeah, sorry. So I agree that affirmations for me also are too much of a hairpin turn in terms of my own internal thinking. So I'm more about the like, okay, I can't go like this, but maybe I can go like this. You know, maybe I can divert the stream rather than completely stopping it and turning it right back
Yeah,
around.
yeah, I agree with that. I kind of wanted to add on to that. Like it does feel very like forced. Like I'll look in the mirror and be like, you're awesome. And sometimes it's nice, to be like you're awesome, but like usually there's like a reason for it. Like unless there's like a reason, it feels very forced and like you guys said, like I'm lying to myself. Um, but like sometimes just like if I'm like having a negative thought. Sometimes I'll try to counter that by being like, no. Like instead of being like, you're an idiot, stop thinking that way. I'll be like, that's a goofy thought. I'm not that
Mm-hmm.
bad. Like
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like
try to be a
challenging
little bit
those.
nicer to myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
Sorry, go ahead.
I think challenging those thoughts is really important, and like trying to be what your friend would say to you. Like the way that we talk to ourselves is like actually like really mean a lot of the times. And if we could just talk to ourselves the way we would talk to ourselves or talk to us, then I think would be a lot better. It's really hard to do. But one thing that really helps me is cognitive behavioral therapy. And like I have these like list of questions that like help, like if I'm really anxious or have a low self-esteem, I'll like go through these questions, and by the end of it, even if I'm still depressed or like not feeling great, I'm like more grounded in reality. So like if I'm like like no one likes me, um it'll be like, okay, like what evidence do you have for that? And I'm like, well, this person said this and that's why no one likes me. It's like, well, what evidence do you have against that? And I'll be like, okay, like I know this person enjoys being around me at least. And like I kind of like begrudgingly go through like this set of 10 questions, and it just like helps me get more of like a grasp of like reality of like, okay, like by the end of it, so like by the end of it, like the last two questions are like, what would a friend say to you? What would you say to a friend? And then by the end of it, like even if I still feel really bad, I'm just like, okay, like more reasonably, I had a conflict with this particular person and I have a lot of trauma around this particular thing, but that doesn't mean that no one likes me. Like there's just this issue that is happening and this is what it is. So yeah, I don't know, that just like helps with my anxiety where I'm like, oh, this bad thing's gonna happen, and then I like go through these questions, then I'm like, okay, like, you know, it is a possibility, but there's also a bunch of other possibilities that are even more likely, or things like that. I don't know, but yeah, it helps me get more grounded. um
I had a, 'cause that it's kind of a question. It might turn into a bit of a ramble, um, but something I did when I was in a pretty sad uh, period was that I had a little notebook, and in the notebook I decided to write down all the like nice things that happened to me that day. Like it was kind of like a diary, and it was like I'm just really miserable all the time. I need to, you know how it's like how they say if you write something down, it sticks in your mind better. For some people, it's like you remember it better,
mm-hmm.
or the meaning of it stays with you. And I was like, well, I'll do that. Um, and it was going really well. And then what happened is this thing that I inevitably do, where I basically I turned it into a routine, and I was doing it because I felt like I had an obligation to do it. And so it was like like I was feeling miserable that, well, I guess the sun's shining, and I was just like, right, so the sun's still there. I guess that's a fun thing. And it would just be like there was some days where just like two things on it. I saw a dog, and then I got like to where I was counting how many dogs I was seeing. Like I would go out, and I would literally just get, okay, how many dogs have I? Oh, I haven't seen as many as I did yesterday. Oh fuck! Oh, this day's ruined now. Like I was getting super fixated on this thing, and like I'm curious as how like you were saying you have this like list of questions, and like I'm curious to how people can not turn that into like a routine, like to not turn it into something where you get to a point you're like, am I doing this because it helps, or am I doing it because I feel like I have to? Like that's how it got for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like for you it's working fine. So kudos.
Yeah, I think
Maybe I don't know.
I think if you're answering, so like this is just my experience, but like I so like there was a period in my life where I was like super alone, so like I didn't have anyone to talk to. And honestly, like I think the people in my life that I have to talk to now actually help me get to a more grounded place without having to do this on my own. But like when I was just like on my own, I was like I was like there was a period of my life where I was like in a horrible place and I didn't have anyone to talk with. And so I would just be like alone and like ruminating and anxious, and I had like no idea like what to do about it. It was like really extreme, and I also couldn't find a therapist. So I like took this Udemy course, and this person like downloaded this in their materials, and I tried it. I was like, okay, that is helpful. I felt better. Like literally like 15 minutes later, I was like ruminating again, and I was like, I'm just gonna actually go through these set of questions every time I ruminate and try to change my thought pattern on this. And it would literally be like there would be like whole days where I was like just actually just doing this, like repeating this process all day. And I like made myself do it. And it was also like, it also like got me through that time period. But I think the thing is, like, if I'm answering those questions sincerely, where it's like, because it's not just like, it's not so much as like a feel good thing. It's actually just like trying to be grounded. So it's like, what evidence do you have that your anxiety is true? What evidence do you have? Let me just go through these questions actually.
Yeah.
Because it was so helpful for me. And I'm not saying that other people have to do that, but just, okay, sorry. I can find them really fast. Documents. There they go. Where is it? It's one of these.
I also just seen one of your notes for the next bit, and it's I like it.
So it says, okay, so the first question is like, what evidence is to support my belief? Oh, so you write down your belief. Like, this is my belief. I'm absolutely a piece of shit and everyone hates me. And it's like, what evidence is there to support your belief? And you're like, well, the other day, this and this happened and this happened. And so there you have it. That's the evidence that supports I'm a piece of shit. And it's like, what evidence is there to cast doubt on it? And then that's kind of a bit more begrudging. And you're like, well, you know, I know that these people like me or something like that. What alternative possibilities are there, and what evidence is there to suggest that might be true? And so like these kind of questions, they're just very sobering. Like, what alternative possibilities are? And like when I write alternative possibilities, usually there's like one in there where I'm like, okay, like that, I can admit that, you know, a couple of these possibilities are probably more likely or more of what's going on than my actual belief. And, you know, is my belief balanced or is it too extreme or inflexible? And I'm like, well, I'm really only looking at my viewpoint right now. This situation involves multiple people, so it probably is inflexible, like where I'm like, everybody hates me, but actually there's just like more going on. Is this belief helpful? What problems are caused by believing it? And then I'll be like, oh, okay, like this probably, okay. At that point, I'm like, okay, it's like probably not super helpful to believe this because it makes me, the problems it causes, or it makes me feel like I'm an awful person. And it also like makes me decide what's going on for that person because I've already decided that they hate me. And that's actually probably not what's going on for them. Like they might just be having a bad day. Is my belief true? Oh, wait, sorry. I'm not sharing my screen for this. So that would be helpful. Because I'm still looking at, okay, stop streaming, share your screen. There we go. I'm sorry. Okay,
I
so
was
people can
very subtly gonna ask if you could share them on the Discord later.
Yeah.
Because I might want to have a look at them.
Yeah, I will post this on the Discord. So again, let me just go through this really fast. What evidence there to cast doubt on it? What alternative possibilities are there? Is my belief too extreme or inflexible? Is the belief helpful? And this is another point. If my belief is true, how much does it matter? Sometimes like that's like such a frustrating question because I'm like, if my belief is true, that'd be like the worst thing in the world if everyone that I cared about hated me. But then it's like, what could I do to check if my belief is true? It's like, okay, like here's what I can do right now. If my belief is true, because sometimes it is, what is the most constructive way I could react? And that helps me be like, okay, like worst case scenario, I can react that way. And when I actually think about it in those terms, it's not so bad. And then these last two questions. What would I say to a friend who described a similar situation? What would a supportive friend say to me if I described the situation? And what would a more moderate or tentative interpretation be? So like after like you go through all these questions, it's like what's like a more kind of like accurate belief? And like the accuracy still doesn't necessarily feel good. Sometimes the accuracy is like, yeah, like me and this person have had this conflict and we need to work through it still, but it's not that like everyone hates me. You know, it's that we both have trauma and now we've triggered each other around our trauma and we have to probably come back later and talk about that. But it's not that this person hates me or like, so it's like, I don't know, if I do this, like I would spend like hours doing this and it helps me a lot. but yeah, I think I have people around me where I just like talk to them and I'm like, I feel fucked up, and then we talk about that, and that's okay. But I feel like when I was alone, this was kind of a saver because you don't always have someone to talk with, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, I hope that is helpful. Sorry, that was very tangential. Um, any thoughts
No,
on that
I think
before
it's
we?
highly related.
I love that. I was just looking at being like at that and being like, wow, that is like extremely organized. It's really cool because when just thinking about like as you said, you have like some friends that you can talk to about when you're feeling messed up. And like back when I was in my like loneliness phase of being like nobody feels me, nobody's gonna relate, I'm such a burden on everybody, I don't want to talk to anybody about this. It would just be me like scribbling stuff in my notebook, and I've filled up many composition notebooks with like just like completely unorganized mess. And yeah, nowadays it's like I'm at a point in my life where I'll rant to my friends and family about stuff, and it comes out like just getting it out is helpful. But like those days it was like just putting the mess out there wasn't really that helpful. So I feel like organizing it like that was a really good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I thought this was so super helpful. Like, there's someone else gave me a handout called "Untwist Your Thinking," and it goes over like these like 10 major kind of like default thinking that people can have when they're feeling anxious or sad, and it's like an all or nothing mentality, and it's like it just I'll post that too. It's just those things have just really helped me. But yeah, I guess I'll go back to the rest of the notes if there's not more to add. Okay, so she says we think that negativity is more realistic than positivity, and so we must replace negativity with positivity. And I don't necessarily disagree in some ways. It's just like there's just like some ways that what she's saying like reminds me of toxic positivity. But she wrote this like before people were talking about this, and so it's like I wish there were just like some clear examples of that, because also like things are really messed up. Like our society is like so messed up. Like I don't yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of think like trying to have hope is revolutionary, and it's really beautiful, but it's like really hard to do. Um this is something that I thought was like interesting. Oh, wait, yeah, actually before I move on, this is moving on a little bit, but yeah, does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I can't really do much on terms of positivity. Even where I find my hope is like within the negativity. So for me, it's very difficult to think of turning negative things into positive things. Sometimes you just gotta feel like trash and you gotta work your way through that because stuff sucks.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
always Oh, sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, like, I guess like sometimes it's just for like silly small things. Like when somebody says like happiness is temporary, like the the contrarian me wants to say like, well, sadness is temporary too. Like, it's just like I don't need to be such a downer all the time. But like I'm just kind of being a smartass there. But then like when like my parents are like, you should be happier. Like I'm just like, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm like, because it's like just so annoying to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm not always gonna be happy. Like I'm not always gonna be in a mood like the nicest person in the world. So it's just
Yeah.
like it really gets on your nerves.
As a kid, that's something that would happen to me all the time because I was always a very, very angry and negative child. So all the adults would be like, you should smile more, you should be happier, and all of that nonsense. And it didn't exactly fix any of the issues that I was going through. It just meant that people didn't think I was being a kid properly.
Yeah, it made you feel worse.
Yeah, it seems more like repression, basically.
Oh man, it's true that the term positivity, like 20 years ago, probably didn't have all of the shitty baggage that it has now.
Yeah.
So this passage, like, it doesn't read, it didn't age super well, but she does say later on, right after the passage, like, I'm not talking about denying the realities of institutional and systemic racism and ableism and etc. So I did want to quickly highlight that. But I imagine bell hooks might, having seen what like positivity quote unquote has grown into, which is mostly, I would say, a tool for maintaining the status quo. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't feel positive, you're actually not working hard enough
Mm-hmm.
on yourself, or
You're
you know what I
doing
mean?
it
Like,
wrong.
exactly, yeah. So like positivity as a term has definitely become a pretty, yeah, baggage laden thing. But I do want to give bell hooks a little credit for saying, by the way, that doesn't mean denying the realities of systemic oppression.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I can't imagine that bell hooks is talking about toxic positivity. Like, I think, yeah, I think she's just kind of a little bit general when she talks about some of these things, and I would like some more specific examples. But she does, acknowledge that. I can't imagine that she's like talking about just like avoiding your pain. Um, yeah. Okay. So I guess moving on. Oh, this one. This is something I can have. I just was like, I can relate. So she says, in my childhood home, my brother was never punished for talking back. Asserting his opinions was a positive sign of manhood. When my sisters and I voiced our opinions, we were told by our parenting adults, that this was negative and undesirable behavior. And I had that experience too growing up, and it just really, really annoyed me. Um, yeah. Okay, so this is the part. Wait, did we go over this last time? Like, maybe we didn't. Okay, sorry. Maybe I'll just say. Well, I'll just go to that quote because I actually don't remember why I wrote that down, other than I've had that experience. But I want to remember what she's saying with that. Okay, so she's talking about sexist socializations teaches females that self-assertiveness is a threat to femininity. And at the end of this paragraph, she says, luckily, by the time we were young adults, the feminist movement had come along and validated that having a voice and being self-assertive was necessary for building self-esteem. Okay, so that's what she's talking about it. Like, talking about, like, being able to be self-assertive. Oh my gosh. Like, how that's necessary to have self-esteem. Yeah, that's kind of still mind-boggling to me. Like, I'm still actually really afraid to... Like, I'm always worried about that I'm bothering people, and so, like, I'll diminish myself in a lot of ways. Yeah. I don't know. Any thoughts on self-assertiveness?
Same. I've always constantly think I'm bothering someone. Just constantly. But I shouldn't be messaging this person. They have a life unlike me. They're not completely absorbed in work 24 hours. No, I shouldn't. So yeah, feel that. Anyone can message me at any time. Just putting it. I'll never be bothered.
Wow, double standards much, Tom?
Oh Christ. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, the minimizing, self disappearing, probably trauma response in a lot of cases is so irresistible, uh, when you're not a magnificently powerful person in society too, because you're basically being told that all the time, like, oh, it's, you're I don't know. Actually, I'm not going to go on a big capitalism rant. I think people know what I mean here.
I mean, it is kind of our thing, though, isn't it? It's like
Yeah. Okay. So
it's inevitable that we'll, because
yeah,
it is the
basically the worst parts of hierarchical thinking and societal organization will eventually tell you anyway that you're taking up too much space and you need to make yourself convenient to the collective organization. No, sorry, this point isn't well formed enough. I'm going to stop.
If you understand some of those societal pressures against you, it helps you kind of reverse some of those thoughts. Like for me, being multiply disabled, society's constant message is that I'm completely disposable and a burden to society, basically. But at that point, it just pisses me off that society would say that to anyone because it's not just me, and I can decide society sucks even more than I do.
Did you have a point though where, like, is that I imagine coming to that versal was like a journey for you and not just was it kind of innately?
It's multiple steps of it, but in the end, for me, like the way I've gotten through different bouts of depression and whatnot is probably not healthy, but rage. I just get really, really freaking angry at the world and get angry at certain people, and then I use the rage as fuel. So I've been angry at different things and come to understandings of different parts of it over my life.
Anger is a gift.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I wish you were here for when we read Audre Lorde. She has this essay called "The Uses of Anger," and how when you're angry, it puts a very precise focus on issues. It's something that you got to listen to. So anyways, I really loved it. But yeah,
I loved Audre Lorde too. I was here for some of that.
Yeah, no.
Wait, you're talking not to me.
Yeah, I was talking to Corin about that. I could have just read this whole book one day. We read I think 4 essays from it, but that'd be cool to go over the whole thing. Every essay that we read was a banger. So yeah, any more on that stuff before we move on?
I don't have anything to say about that stuff, but can I make a suggestion? Can we talk about the part where you get to where Bell Hooks has 2 houses? Because I've been oh my gosh, I want to talk about this part, but also I really want to talk about chapter 5. So
maybe we should just do one chapter per book club, because I keep on thinking we'll just blast through it, but actually it's because I think if we just focus on chapter 4 today, we'll get to everything. But I feel with Bell Hooks, I feel I don't know. I'm oh, okay, we're talking about love. And so I end up wanting to talk about trauma and all these things. I don't know. It kind of feels a little bit more of a loose form as far as this format goes. So yeah, would you all be okay with maybe just doing 1 chapter a week? And then we can do 5 totally next week, but then we just won't have any reading because it's already done.
I still need to read it.
People can read it and find new stuff too.
Okay, cool.
Right.
As long as everyone's okay with that. I just didn't really plan that out very well. Yeah, Jeremy, if you just want to talk about the house thing, we can jump to there and then we can get back to other stuff.
Yeah, man, I was yo, not only do you have 2 houses, but you're just in this book randomly dropping it like it's no big thing, and how you have them so that they can be specifically color coordinated so that they can suit your different moods, and you can be oh, I'm in this sort of mood right now. Let me go to my other house.
Yeah.
The way that this is set up, it just makes me think yo, don't have heroes. Because not that this is a big thing, not that this is a deal breaker or anything like that. It just makes me think yo, I don't know how seriously to take your analysis on anything like that. We're coming from very different places, and such to the point
I don't need
that
to have 1 house and you have 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear other people's thoughts on that.
I mean, I definitely wrote that. I was it sounds like Bell Hooks has 2 houses, and I was just kind of confused. Let me see where Oh yeah, yeah. If anyone has any thoughts on that.
I just take it as a reason to be a little bit critical about anything the person says about money or certain other things. Like something I see within disability spaces, you'll see like elderly disability rights activists that used to do like a ton of work. Um, they get to a point in their lives where they're relatively comfortable and then they think things are better than they actually are. Um, so like it, things can still be useful out of it, but you just have to take it with a grain of salt because of what they have that they might be thinking everyone's starting to have.
Yeah, that was like super weird to me. Like, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Also, people are saying, like, I want to read some other stuff by her too, because I wonder if it's all as vague as this and just kind of like, I don't know, just dropping stuff about, okay, like this thing that I like put before the two houses thing, it's like bringing love into the work environment can create the necessary transformation that can make any job we do, no matter how menial, a place where workers can express the best about themselves. And then, yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. I know it's like different times. It's like different time. Yeah, sorry. I know it's different times. But I'm just like, this is the thing that I was like talking about last week, where I was like, if I am at a menial job, well, first off, like, yeah, if I'm at a menial job that like doesn't really respect me, so like I've tried putting myself into those jobs and being like, I'm gonna be like the best server I can be. I'm gonna be the best person working at a retail store I can be. And when I do that, like I just get fucked over so hard. And eventually I met this person who was like, he just be like, fuck it. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, just fuck it. Like, don't put too much of yourself into these jobs. And it was like revolutionary. And then I just was like, yeah, I'm just not going to care anymore. And now when I work really menial jobs, it's so much better, because also the managers don't fuck with me because they know that they can't. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And it's amazing. Anyways, I don't know. There's like things like that where I'm like, I don't know. There's like some stuff she says that just that like the two houses and just menial jobs thing, but yeah, I don't know. I'm probably judging her too hard. What do y'all think?
I mean, it feels to me that it rests on the assumption that we can't have a reality where there aren't menial jobs. Like it's saying, oh well, it's a given that some people are going to have jobs that are shit and that do not satisfy like their needs or their wants or their desires or something. Like it's kind of just assuming that, and it's like, well, if you bring love into it, which also I'm not exactly clear what that means. I would also like some examples. I'd like a graph. But yeah, sort of bringing love into that kind of job, and at the same sort of time just sort of accepting that, oh well, those types of jobs are always going to be a thing, instead of saying maybe let's think about why are there so-called menial jobs, why are there these jobs where usually the way to cope best is to not put yourself into it. Like you said, like why are there jobs where saying fuck it, say it to me, say it, just like nobody, I'm not going to deal with any of it, is the way to survive. And I feel like it's resting on the assumption that that's just how it is, and that somehow, again, bringing love to it, I don't understand. I need an example, because I could imagine that backfiring quite badly. I think I might have seen it backfire quite badly, especially in teaching. I think that's something that can go wrong. But I might, again, I don't fully understand the indication there. But yeah, I feel like it rests on that assumption a bit too much. But
I
I
agree.
super agree with that. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I super agree with that, and like this might be just like me off on my own thought tangent or giving her a little bit too much credit, but like I'm imagining it in such a way where it's like you know say you're a garbage man, but like we reconceive and reconceptualize the job so that it's like that's not necessarily all that you're doing. It's like maybe you're a garbage man like one day of the week, and for that day it's like yeah, this is out of love. This is out of me like doing what's necessary for the planet and for the society and for everybody else that I'm around. And like by the end of the day it sucks, but you're like, oh, I did a good job, and you're self-satisfied and everything like that. But
Yeah,
then like to structure the society in such a way that you can love every job is a different thing than to be like you're just going to have menial jobs and you're going to love them anyway. It's like that's not practical at all.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, go on. Was someone gonna
I
say
don't know.
something? Is that you two?
Sorry. Yeah, it's just it's like my connection is being really weird with each individual video feed. Like some people are frozen, some people aren't. Um,
Yeah, I think
but
I'm
sorry, you go ahead.
frozen, but yeah, I don't see me moving, but it hears me. I know
Yeah.
she says like if a job's like destroying your life, then just like obviously don't be at it. And like it's people's responsibility who love them to like help them get out of those jobs. So I don't know, like maybe that's kind of the qualifier where it's like if a job is like ruining your life. Like she talks about how um oh gosh, where is it? Where is it? She talks about a lot of violence and abuse is linked to job misery. Oh, I spelled misery wrong. Misery. To job misery. We can support loved ones by supporting them to leave work that assaults their well-being. And I think that's actually I actually like 100% agree with that. And it sounds like to her, like in the example she gave, like where she was like a chef, she says, my nighttime work helped me relish the quiet serenity of my day and enjoy the alone time to essential that is so time so essential to writing. And so it sounds like for her, like that job, it took a lot of her time up, like she really it helped her really cherish the free time she did have where she could put to writing. Um and I guess yeah, I think a lot of people I guess it probably just makes a sense for a lot of people. I guess for me, like I've had so many jobs where I'm like, this is one of the worst experiences of my life, but it's like a job. Or like, I don't know. I think because I have ADHD, like I put myself in jobs where I had to like stand around and just not do anything. Like I had like being a cashier or working in retail where there's like not anything to do. And so like I actually like it drove me up the wall because I need something to do. Um but some people like that. Like there's a security guard at my grocery store who just like I'll talk to him sometimes and he's like, "Yeah, I have like 12-hour shifts and I'm here from like 7 to 7." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh. That's really extreme." Like I don't know. Anyways, but he can put up with it. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just like thinking I mean, I don't know. I think for me like I don't know if anyone has this issue, but like I actually like feel really anxious being in the world because I think about people at their jobs and like wonder if they're happy. And
Mhm.
I think about how like people spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week at their job. And I just, if they're not happy, then I'm like, that's so much of your life to be like spent doing something that doesn't make you happy. And like, and then I think about like places like when people yeah, okay, so like, okay, this is like a weird example, but like I was watching a documentary on Jonestown. Yes, Jonestown is like fucked up. Oh, for those of you who don't know what Jonestown is, it's a cult back in I think the 60s or maybe 50s, and it was like their selling point was that they were like we're going to have like white and black people worship together, which is a beautiful thing. Um but then it got weird. But before it got weird, people were like living in communes together, and they were like farming their own food and stuff. And the people who were in it at that point were like, that was like the most beautiful days of my life, because it felt like what we were doing was directly supporting each other. Like the work that we were doing was supporting each other. And it's like, I do think that that's what good work is like seeing that it has an impact, seeing that it's actually directly helping your community. That is what makes work so fulfilling. And people have these jobs that are so segregated from that, and or jobs that are just like meaningless, that just don't need to exist. And so I think that's like actually the majority of jobs. And I'm just like, it just stresses me out. There's like, but I don't exactly remember where I'm going with this, but something with like, I guess to me, like so many jobs do seem like they're just they're actually like harmful, because it's like, they're just like, you have to make up your own imaginary meaning for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that stresses me out. But I think for a lot of people, actually, it's actually just like that. They don't have like all of that negative feedback loop that I do, where they're like, yeah, like I'm happy to be security guard and I have 12-hour shifts, but I only work like 3 days a week kind of thing. Or 4 days a week. And they're actually okay with that. So I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but that's kind of where my thoughts are.
This
I
section.
feel you.
Oh, sorry. You go, Jeremy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick, when I worked at Starbucks, I would like fluctuate in and out of that whole like inner monologue that you had of like, oh, this isn't so bad. I'm glad that I can give people their coffee that they really seem to like. And also, this job is completely eating my soul away. I'm spending my nights and days just giving people sugar milk. What is my life? And it just like would ping pong back and forth with that. So I feel you.
I think
I
this
would
section could.
Capitalism doesn't really go together well with love, but work doesn't have to go together with capitalism. I mean, we would all get bored if we were doing absolutely nothing, but capitalism corrupts the activities we're doing for the benefit rather than for the community as a whole.
Yeah, I think this section could definitely have benefited from a broader grounding with a critique of capitalism, saying like, yeah, finding spaces where you can work with love and like feel like you have a purpose is really important. Clearly, also, by the way, we live in a system that makes that very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So I think she could have, if the chapter would have benefited from some kind of a broader acknowledgement of that earlier on. And at the same time, I want to, I guess, like just validate bell hooks a little bit, because I'm a bell hooks apologist. You can put it on my in the hit piece. But like when she's talking about like doing the job to your very best, it makes me think of two things. First of all, it makes me think of all the menial jobs I've had where the only redeeming spot of light was like having coworkers who gave a shit, and not in the sense of giving a shit of like helping the company's bottom line, but in the sense of giving a shit of making it a decent place to work and making that like having their presence be like, oh, thank God this person's here. Thank God I got to work with this person. So it made me think of stuff like that. It also made me think of like doing your best in a way of like trying to be inscrutable, like working under shitty managers who don't know how to manage people well. And instead of going, oh, well, this person is clearly doesn't know what they're talking about, I'm not going to do it this way, going, well, I'm going to adhere to these completely ridiculous rules because it's actually easier for me and it's like a form of protection to me to be inscrutable rather than to like know in my heart that this is a terrible way of doing things and why would I do things this way. So I don't know, that's kind of a subtle point, but I'm just thinking about a particular job where I used to have a lot of oppositional reaction and a lot of resistance internally that was really difficult. And I made a shift to a like, okay, this is this person's little house of power. This is a person that I think is pretty shitty generally. But instead of like holding that in my heart every time I'm at this job, I'm instead going to go, like, it's a kind of a strange submission that's an act of self-defense and preservation.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this chapter is basically about surviving and maybe getting yourself into a position where you can thrive. But yeah, definitely a lot to besides here.
Yeah. No, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think that like, excuse me, that the unfortunate reality around jobs is that it's like, a lot of jobs. Yeah, I mean, jobs are about self-preservation. Like we have to. I mean, at least for us, it is like beggars can't be choosers so often of the time, or getting yourself to a job that you do like or that is wholesome can be really hard. Sometimes people don't even know about the spaces to be in, like, and so yeah, like I think, if you're kind of like forced in these situations, it's like that. I think that could be a good way to go about it, because people don't have the option of flipping over a table and angrily quitting. Although I wish I had done that, and maybe one day I'll live out that dream. But right now I don't have a bad job. But part of me does fantasize about like getting a serving job and then just as soon as someone's mean, be like, I quit, and then just dramatically exit. But anyways, yeah, that's not the option for most people. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that? There's a couple other things I wrote down. Oh, you know what? We have 5 minutes left, so let's just see if there's anything that we missed. Yeah, this is what Ben was talking about. Doing a job well, even if we do not enjoy what we are doing, means that we leave it with a feeling of well-being, your self-esteem intact. And I think if that's possible, that's a good goal to have. Oh yeah, this is funny how she talks about the Centaur person who thinks that if you do what you love, the money will flow, and unfortunately, that's not the case for a lot of people. One of the best guides to how to be self-loving is to give ourselves the love we are often dreaming about receiving from others. Oh yeah, I did have a question on this. So this, I see when people just like say this, because she establishes that like, you can't, people say you can never love anybody if you aren't able to love yourself. And so she gives, let me just go to this because she gives an example. The example she gives. So this is on page 67 at the bottom. One of the best guides to how to be self-loving is to give ourselves the love we are often dreaming about receiving from others. There was a time when I felt lousy about my over 40 body, saw myself as too fat, too this or too that. Yet I fantasized about finding a lover who would give me the gift of being loved as I am. It is silly, isn't it, that I would dream of someone else offering to me the acceptance and affirmation I was withholding from myself. This was a moment when the maxim, you can never love anybody if you are unable to love yourself, made clear sense. And I add, do not expect to receive the love from someone else you do not give. And I guess I'm just wondering, I guess, why? Like, why? Because, like, I definitely agree with the first half of, like, give yourself the love that you haven't given yourself. Like, I am going through, like, like I'm trying to love my blackness, because just growing up, like people, I just grew up around white people where they would just like make fun of me for being black, or this is just like racism, but like black features, black hair, all these things. And so like I kind of learned that being black is to be all these negative things. And as an adult, I'm like, yeah, that was really racist. And I actually think black people are really beautiful. And I want to like really actually love being a black person. And I'm not, I can't wait for someone to give that to me. And so, yeah, I mean, I agree with that first half of like trying to love the things that you want other people to love about you, loving that yourself. And then also when people say that you can't love other people until you love yourself, it's kind of like, I don't know why that's necessarily true, because I think, yeah, I don't know why that would like necessarily be true, because there's like ways that I don't love myself, but I still love other people. And I think I genuinely do think it's like love, even the sense that Bell Hooks puts it like wanting their, you know, wanting them. Let's see, how does she define it? You know, she defines love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another spiritual growth. Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely both intention and action. So it's like, given that definition, it's like, I think I do love people, even when there are things I don't love about myself. So it's like, yeah, we're about out of time, but are there any thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I was thinking, like it's kind of like, to what extent, like, do you have to love yourself to be able to love somebody else? Like it's kind of confusing if you put it so vaguely, you know? Because it's like, yeah, I like myself in some way. I love myself in some ways, but not in others. Can I still love somebody? You know?
Yeah, let me just look before we end. Maybe I'll just read the next paragraph, and maybe maybe we'll get some answers there. In an ideal world, we would all learn in childhood to love ourselves. We would grow, being secure in our worth and value, spreading love wherever we went, letting our light shine. If we do not learn self-love in our youth, there is still hope. The light of love is always in us, no matter how cold the flame. It is always present, waiting for the spark to ignite, waiting for the heart to awaken and call us back to the first memory of being the life force inside a dark place, waiting to be born, waiting to see the light. So I don't think she expands on that idea, but I guess I will just say, like, the reason why when people say, like, you can't, it kind of bothers me when people say that you can't love others until you love yourself, is like, I don't think this is what she's saying, though. So, like, maybe it's not even relevant, but like this idea that like you kind of have to like learn to love yourself on your own before you can love others, but it's actually like by being with others that you love that you can learn to love yourself and learn how to love others. It's like actually like a social process of like self-love, and the love for others is often like a very social situation. But she does say in the beginning of this that, you know, loving yourself is not an isolating event. So I think she'd recognize that. So I guess I'm not sure exactly what she means, but I do really dig the first half of it of like trying to love the things in yourself that that you don't love. Like giving yourself that love, I think, is really important to try to do. But yeah, any last thoughts on that?
I think that particular maxim, you can't love someone else or whatever until you, is another one that's gained quite a bit of troublesome baggage, a bit like the word positivity. Like, there's a lot of ways to interpret that maxim where it's like, okay, go out into the forest and learn to love yourself before you even try to love someone else. You know, where someone could interpret it in the least charitable possible way, or it could be co-opted by someone who's like, oh, you're a damaged person unless you do, you know, years of seminars and therapy and learn to love yourself, and otherwise stay away from people. You know, like there's a lot of uncharitable ways to interpret it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's also like maybe not extremely well put and is open to not great interpretations. Uh, so maybe I would attempt to reframe it like, if you want to deepen and strengthen the love that you have and feel for others, it's probably going to be necessary for you to deepen and strengthen relationship with yourself and your love for yourself, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else before we wrap up?
I agree with that, Ben. I think you put that really well.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop the stream there. Um, yeah. For anyone who is watching, thanks for joining us. And the next week, we're going to be going over the red deal. So I hope to see you all there. All right. The stream.